Good morning, good morning, good morning.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
Good, how you doing?
Not bad, thanks.
Staying warm?
Trying to. I just saw out the window this morning that there's some good, not really snow, but frost in the car, so that'd be fun.
Yeah, this has been not a fun cold because there's been no snowfall. It's not Christmas time. It's just bleak, middle, early January.
Yeah, and we've got like another probably at least good month of this, but I am starting to get over it. The one glimmer of hope, though, is that it does seem to be getting lighter later, which is a huge plus in my book.
I feel like that doesn't kick in until March.
Yeah, but have
Like,
you noticed? It's like sundown. Like if you get home at 5, it's not completely pitch black.
no, I have not noticed.
I notice.
Mr. Daylight Savings notice? That's a shocker.
I noticed.
All right, let's get into it. 1776 by David McCullough, published in 2005. Heart of the era of books in which we're looking. 1776 by David McCullough is a compelling historical narrative that focuses on the pivotal year of the American Revolution. The book centers on the lives of key figures, including George Washington and the Continental Army, as they faced the immense challenges of fighting for independence against the British Empire.
Yeah, that's one thing that I guess, because I read this a long time ago, but I had completely forgot about. I completely forgot that this book is just a snapshot.
Yeah, it throws you right into 1776 with
Yep.
it's very interesting that way. That's
It's-
I love that was your first takeaway because you're in it. Like there's very little time to get your bearings. If you're from Nepal and have no idea what the American Revolution is about, you're probably lost.
yeah, and yeah, I mean, not even that, but just it, it, the period that it does pick up in, right? Just the 1776. There's a lot that happened before.
Oh
And
yeah.
there's a lot that happened after, but it really just covers this one period, just, I guess, being the height of crisis in that one year. I had completely forgot, because if I was telling somebody about this book prior to rereading it again, I would say, yeah, you want a Revolutionary War book? Pick up 1776. It's not. It's 1 year of the revolution.
It's one faction within 1 year because it's not. They don't do much of the Continental Congress. It's just
George
Washington's
Washington.
Continental Army
Yep.
in 1776.
Yes.
It's a yeah. It's half. It's a. If you're looking at one picture of this year, you're looking at one person within one picture of this
One
year.
person's biography, I guess you could call it, because that is impressive with all of the letters and diaries that people did write back there that they actually still have access to. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's one person's 1 year during 1776.
I will say there are some cool parts in the first quarter of the book when they're talking about the British reaction to it and King George and British
Mhm.
Parliament deciding whether or not to go to war. That was awesome. That was really interesting.
Yeah, and that all seems
Obviously
pretty well
the American,
documented.
the American perspective.
Yeah, that all seems pretty well documented also, in terms of like the actual letter writing or the notes from the parliamentary meetings. All that seems like there are actual quotes and real life situations that were being discussed then. Yeah, I enjoyed that part too. It sets the stage pretty good for what actually goes on here and why.
But did you know how contentious that deliberation was about whether or not to fight a war against the Americans?
No, not that I thought it was like, I knew it wasn't totally accepted, but I did not expect it to be so dual sided. I had forgotten about that
Yeah.
part, that so many people pro and so many people against.
As hard as it was for On the Road to take notes and highlight stuff because it's just like we mentioned, a rambling narrative. This book was so much easier where you're just like,
Yeah.
there's locations I know, there's people I know, I can tie strings back to stuff.
It is funny,
This is just
interesting.
one
Yeah,
thing.
like on the road, we were going through different states and stuff like that, and it was just dragging on and on. Now we're covering 12 miles in a day, different towns, different locations. Granted, it's all like Northeast, which is right up our alley. But still, it was just so much more fun following along on the map with this than it was on the road.
Yeah, I want to get to that because there's probably so many locations that we know. But this is the John Wilkes, Lord Mayor of London, talking about potential war with America. We are fighting for the subjugation, the unconditional submission of a country indefinitely more extended than our own, which every day increases the wealth, the natural strength, the population. Should we not succeed, we shall be considered as a most implacable enemy. An eternal separation will follow, and the grandeur of the British Empire may pass away.
Bingo.
That is spot on.
He is quite spot on with that.
I mean, we didn't become long-term enemies, but that is like, Bud, you called it.
That is absolutely spot on. Like, you put a check mark next to that one in history. Like, this guy saw it.
I just can't imagine, like, he's identifying at the time, like, hey, this is a big landmass. They're growing in population. They're growing in wealth. Apparently, in the book, he said America's more wealthy than the British Empire at the time.
If I was there, I would have thought that I would be on that side as well. If I was in Britain, if I was British, if I was English at that time, I would have thought that same thing. It's hard to describe, like, in present day what that would mean, but I would assume it would be like if Texas left. Like, it's a big deal that the 13 colonies were moving in a lot of money. They were saying something along the lines of, like, the colonists at the time were actually some of, like, the wealthiest people in the world by comparison.
Yeah.
You see that? Like,
yeah,
the people in the U.S. were actually doing so well for themselves that they were actually it was a big piece that was being separated. So yeah, I it's hard to describe what it would be like now, because it wouldn't be like a colony right now. It'd be losing like a piece of the chunk.
Yeah, it'd be like I think it'd be like losing, like, west of the Rockies. Like, you lose
big piece, California,
Washington, Oregon, California. Yeah. Because it generated so much wealth for them. But it's unprecedented to let a colony go. I mean, this is the era of empires.
Yeah.
You didn't let colonies go.
No. And the whole, you just think to yourself, how did it ever get to this point? How did it become that way? And it's amazing to me, the transfer of people in such a short amount of time. Right? We're talking about 100 and I don't know, 70 years or so.
Yeah.
In the Jamestown colony, like the early 1600s.
I believe so, yes.
So whatever, 170 years or so. We're talking about a massive, massive amount of people. I forget how many people they were saying were in the country at the time. They did mention that a few times. I forgot to write that down. Yeah, there was millions of people here.
I also want when did the Mayflower land?
1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue.
Yeah, I know that one. I think it was at this 1620.
Okay, so it is 1600s. Yeah.
Yeah, so 150 years.
Yeah. So small amount of time for millions of people to either come over or be born here.
Yeah.
And then to fight against your home nation.
But at that point, was it a home? Because I'm sure there were like a lot of people from, like, the New York was very Dutch. There's people from all over England. I mean, from all over Europe.
Yeah, I think that's still England. Yeah, I think it's still England. Yeah.
Yeah, majority. How much did you, like, if you grew up in, getting back to, like, Texas, do you think you relate to this book as much as you do growing up in the Northeast? Where
not as much. No.
I know.
No, not as much. Which is, I mean, that's just the way it is. It's just like hometown team, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, not it hit knowing all these places. Like, I drive to Hackensack or through Hackensack consistently, and Hackensack to Fort Lee is a route that I know very, very well. And yeah, all those things, like going over the Hudson River, going back and forth to the East River, it's all so familiar.
Yep, Kips Bay. So I used to live in Kips Bay. Basking Ridge, we know. Perth Amboy's a stop on the way to shore.
Yep.
White Plains, Mamaroneck, and then like Newport. We've been there. Yeah.
What I have such trouble figuring out though, or picturing, is that so you're sitting in Kips Bay, you're looking out over the East River. Like if you're sitting in Kips Bay right now, you're still looking at streets of Manhattan, buildings, offices, all that kind of stuff. Imagine it was just trees.
Yeah.
Imagine it's just a forest that you're looking through. That still is so hard for me to picture.
Well, they called it York Island.
Right.
And
Wasn't
I
Manhattan,
think only the tip of Manhattan was really colonized. The rest was just like farms and woods, and that's what it was. Like the country was the 50. If before the grid got in there, like it was probably like 40th Street was probably like the country.
It is so funny though to hear like Washington was like he was down by the City Hall area, and then in like an emergency situation he had to run up to the Harlem River. So it's like, all right, I'll just catch a cab and go up to the river. No, he takes a horse and travels half a day to get up to the Harlem River.
Yeah, exactly. So this book, for the reader, it goes from, this is just off the top of my head, I don't have it in the notes, the Battle of Boston to...
So I would say it goes after Battle of Bunker Hill.
Yeah, Battle of Bunker Hill happens in 75.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
So so it picks up right after the Battle of Bunker Hill. Just to frame the rest of our talk, picks up right after the Battle of Bunker Hill. The British Army now knows that the colonists are ragtag but formidable because the colonists win Battle of Bunker Hill. And the book starts off with Washington formulating the Continental Army for the Battle of Boston, then into the Battle of Brooklyn, then the Battle of, it's the one in like Westchester, the Battle like White Plains.
Yep.
And then Fort Lee lost. It goes like Battle of Boston win, Battle of White Plains.
That was Fort Washington. So Westchester, or maybe even Washington Heights.
Yeah.
That was.
And then Battle of Fort Lee lost, but
wasn't even a battle. Yeah, that was just give up. Nope.
Basically just a retreat. And then basically ends with Washington crossing the Delaware with the Battle of Trenton, and then quickly after the Battle of Princeton.
Princeton.
Yep. So it goes kind of like from Boston down into New Jersey. When they mention like the militias from New Jersey, you're like, come on, boys, let's see. Hopefully we got to get one. Because every time they mentioned Connecticut, I was like,
they were also saying New Jersey was so tough because it was like the most loyalists. The most loyalists are coming from New Jersey.
I'm glad you brought that up, and I didn't have to.
So that one stung a little bit. I did appreciate the whole Garden State thing. They said like Jersey was such an important spot because it was so it was the Garden State at the time. It's still the Garden State now. But yeah, the whole loyalist. I was trying to think like why that would be. I guess it's just where people came from, or because people in New Jersey had it so well. Like why would they want to rock the boat? Why would they want to change things?
Yeah, well, like the whole Garden State thing is kind of like a punchline that we grew up with. Like, oh, the Garden State in New Jersey. Like, but now hearing this is like pretty interesting how it was just such a. I mean, for all you heard about New England, rocky soil, so they got great soil in New Jersey, and they had it kind of progressed out to the breadbasket of Iowa, Nebraska.
Yeah. Because people only see one part of New Jersey now, which it's funny because it's the same route. Like they were talking about the main road, I think the Kings Highway or whatever it was, going from like northern New Jersey, like Newark, Brunswick area to Trenton to Philadelphia. That's like the main road right now. That's pretty much 95.
Yeah.
And then it spreads out to get to Philadelphia. I forgot what it was. So that's pretty interesting too.
I just love the times when the British would write letters and be like, these guys are in disrepair. They look in shambles. But God, do they fight. I was like, my little guy's taking it on.
Not to mention, you say guys, okay. I think they said average age. Did they say 20?
Yeah,
maybe,
super young.
Maybe
super young and old.
Something like that. Some of them are teenagers. Yeah.
It was I've always been sort of an ancient history guy. I love like ancient Egypt, ancient
Yeah.
Rome, ancient Greece, even the Mongol Empire. This got me a little like I need to do more about the American Revolution.
So I feel like I have a bit more so because I'm such a huge George Washington fan.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody is, but this book, right? It shows his human side. Because
Mm-hmm.
if you do follow stuff about the revolution, George Washington, greatest president, you would think he like kind of cakewalked through all this, but he lost, he made mistakes, he struggled, and yet still nobody says anything bad about him.
Well,
He,
how about that time he received the correspondence between his
guy,
lieutenants?
his guy Reed, yeah.
Yeah.
Even so, all right. So that's one time where somebody
No,
says about it, but yes.
Well, it's a line from Saving Private Ryan, like you gripe up,
Right.
you don't gripe down.
Yeah.
Like his lieutenant is griping about what Washington should have done, and Washington thinking it's like a urgent matter, and the lieutenant who was supposed to receive the postage wasn't there, so I was like, hey, I got to read this because this is about troop movement, or this is about conditions, or this is about reinforcements. And he reads, and it's basically a letter dissing him. And he wrote back being like, hey, thanks for the update or whatever.
This passed over my eyes.
Which is a great way to handle it. I mean, you definitely tell a lot was weighing on him. And he was, I wouldn't say apoplectic, but I don't think he knew how bad a shape a lot of the soldiers were in and what he was dealing with. Remember the time in the one retreat, he couldn't believe how many people were retreating away so quickly.
Yeah.
And these were all just, farm men and blacksmith's apprentice and shipwrights and longshoremen. They weren't a regulated army.
Yeah. And that's the biggest thing about it, or the biggest difference, I guess you would say, is that the British had regulars, we had militia.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it probably took some losses from our leadership side to kind of understand how to fight the war, because you couldn't fight it like British regulars against British regulars.
Yeah, conventional.
But the amount of retreating that we did, that the Continental Army did, is, I mean, it's kind of laughable to think of, but I could not imagine being in those situations for a year, being on the run, for 1 year being on the run. They kept saying the numbers, and the numbers were just blowing my mind. Like, you think of a Continental Army, okay. They were like, he had 3,000 people under his command.
I know. It was so small.
It's like a high school in New Jersey.
Well, one interesting thing in the book is that other colonies didn't want to give up their militias because they were worried that they were going to get attacked.
Yeah, they were just.
I kind of do get.
Totally. It wasn't a one nation at that point. There's 13 colonies, and it was still for a while after that. But that was like 3,000 people. How many people fit in the Rose Hill Gym? Like 3,500.
More than 3,000. Yeah.
So that's the entirety of the army, which is such a crazily small number. But because of that small numbers too, it's interesting about that time. Major battle, right? You pick whichever one it was.
Yeah.
Devastating losses. 90 people died. Which 90 and 3,000, I guess, is a big number, but that to me just goes to show you like the technology of the time. Like, they're shooting these pellets or musket balls that are not accurate.
Well, I'd like kind of touching on that when the woodsmen get to Boston and they have a rifled barrel.
Yeah.
And so they can like snipe guys, and so when a musket ball comes out of a non-rifled barrel, it comes out like a knuckleball.
Yeah.
Because it has no spin on it, but the rifle puts it like a football throw with a spiral on it. So and they're like, who are these guys? These guys are incredible.
From like 100 yards or something like that. Yeah, exactly. Somewhat accurately. Yeah.
That was whenever like the Continental Army militias would do something that impressed the British Army, I always love those. Like when they built the fortifications on the Dorchester Heights, Like
Yeah.
they did more in one night than my army could do in a month.
Yeah, it was like it's the ultimate underdog story. Yeah, it really is just like a true underdog story, little brother, whatever you want to call it. And it was not like our success. Our successes in early stages weren't battlefield wins. They were successful either retreats or successful, moderately successful fort buildings that lasted a short amount of time.
Yeah, this book makes me want us to do more American Revolution books.
Okay.
For more authors, for more time frames, for more geographical locations. Because what my not respectable but limited understanding of Washington and the American Revolution is, he was basically just a better retreater than
Yeah.
he would fight until he knew he couldn't win, retreat, and then extend the British army, get money from France, get supplies from France, and just bleed the British Empire dry until it didn't have the money or the will to fight anymore.
Yeah, the subtitle of this book, it's 1776, and it should be something like that. Live to fight another day.
Yeah, it is.
That's really what it was. It's just like keep pulling back. And a big part of it is not so much, well, you could say luck, whatever it was, but the British had several opportunities to just end it, to just keep going, to keep pushing and ending. And for whatever reason that they didn't. And there's several examples of different officers being gentlemanly or whatever it was, not wanting to lose men, whatever it was, just not furthering their advance, which aided the retreats and allowed the United States to keep living another day.
Well, the big thing was the Battle of Brooklyn when the army made their escape across the East River into York Island, aka Manhattan. And the British just didn't pull their navy up into the East River to block the retreat. McCullough references that it had to do with the wind.
Yeah.
But for months and months and months, there was no good wind to cut off an escape route.
Yeah, wind, tides, all those kind of things like play into this with those ships at the time. But you would think that would be, I mean, if you're locked in Brooklyn, you can lock that in.
Yeah.
It seems very easy to lock that in. And that's why when they were initially talking about New York, they were saying as soon as the waterways are gone, you can't hold York Island. You cannot, which was absolutely true. And I think that took Washington too long to figure out or understand. The Continental Army should have been out of New York pretty much immediately. They should not have even tried York Island.
It's also a huge space to try to occupy that's surrounded by water on three sides. Like it's surrounded by water.
Yeah, big water, not streams, big water that you didn't have boats or a navy.
You had no navy.
Yeah,
there was zero American navy.
So you would have thought they would try and get that to mainland as soon as possible.
Yeah, I have so many great highlighted stuff. There's just so many great quotes from the generals and from everyone. Everyone there had such great conveyed their ideas and their such inspirational quotes. Like
the writing style too.
The writing style.
It's too good.
Colonel Henry Knox.
Everything
we want great men who, when fortune frowns, will not be discouraged.
Yeah.
This is kind of getting back to our, rooting for our local guys. The Connecticut militia, already in disgrace for deserting in such appalling numbers, were tagged now with cowardice. The Connecticut runaways were held to blame for the whole fiasco, which only made worse the hard feelings between the troops of New England and those of the other states that had plagued the army almost from the beginning. That was super interesting.
Yeah. The differences of states at the time and their, I guess, passion, loyalties, whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
And such a big part of it, they kept saying, was like, these guys just, if they don't get home to their farms, then their family doesn't eat. Like, even if the United States win, they don't have a home anymore. They don't have a farm anymore. It's such an interesting thought process to know, like, these guys are, hey, defending our country versus putting food on the table.
Yeah, and poorly supplied. It wasn't like it didn't feel like their efforts were rewarded often. I felt bad for the militia. They had no shoes sometimes. They had no gunpowder.
No shoes, no real gunpowder, no real leadership. Who knows if they were getting paid? I know they said
Back pay, yeah.
that stuff. Yeah.
I don't have much more on this. I like the book a lot. It makes me want to read more about the American Revolution. Seeing the progression of Washington trying to wrangle up this army was fascinating.
What are you more,
last thing,
after reading 1776? What are you more interested in reading, 1775 or 1777? Remember that the war ended technically in 1983.
Yeah,
I believe they signed the treaty in 1983.
I think you got to go 75.
I go the other.
Why?
I just, now that we're on like a run, like we just had a little success, I want to now see the team like start playing. You know, like we had the big win, we had the upset. Like we were down 0-3, we won the first game. I want to see the next.
Okay, but that's like I understand. So say let's use that analogy. That's like saying it's a 12-game playoff series, and you want to see we've seen game 1 now. You want to see game 2. I'd rather see what led up to this. Like
maybe it's because I know the outcome that I want to see that part of it because it's the good stuff now.
I think the Continental Congress in deciding to try and earn your independence from Britain is pretty interesting. I also just watched John Adams, so I kind of was in that 75 era, and so I want to learn more about that.
Yeah. No, I stand with that. I would rather continue the war stuff than the lead up to the war stuff. But both are good. Both are extremely interesting. Both are handled on such a fine level that things could have changed historically with like one person's opinion or like one person's speech could have altered things in many different
ways.
Or the weather, yeah.
They talk about that, how the weather allowed for these.
Yeah, talk about being cold now. It seemed like that was a brutal winter or like time leading up to winter because they stopped in winter. That's just when they don't do it anymore. But they were talking about like the rivers being frozen over. It's got to be pretty cold to be able to pull cannons across a river. Okay,
yeah. Last two things. This book is I liked it a lot. Speaking of how cold, pulling the artillery from Fort Ticonderoga to Boston, the Battle of Boston should be a movie because you have the A plot B, Washington getting these ragtag group of troops, holding, trying to get the high ground at Dorchester, monitoring the British, and then you have B plot being pulling in the cannons and the artillery from Fort Ticonderoga over the Berkshires into Boston.
I do think about like Boston being a cool town and setting for that also because it seems like pieces of Boston are still from that time. Like there are areas of Boston, like an old town Boston, where you can still kind of picture it. Like it's not giant skyscrapers all over the place, like York Island, like Manhattan. So I feel like you can still feel it a little bit more in Boston than you could at like the Battle of Brooklyn or anything like that.
Yeah, they talk about Castle Island, which is a place I've been to in Boston, and I know a couple people who live very close to there. And then also, speaking of the weather, the Battle of Trenton almost not happening because an absolute brutal snowstorm in the crossing of the Delaware. They had 3 kind of prongs of the battle plan, and only Washington made the cross.
Sounds like the worst snowstorm New Jersey's ever seen.
Two part of the armies turned back. That's fascinating. Is that okay? I'm turning back. I hope I don't screw my general.
Good luck getting word like across. Pick their fastest horse who's still running in that and try and get a piece of paper over to the guy who's going across. Yeah, it's crazy.
And it was supposed to start off at 6 a.m. They didn't land until
7.
And then
8 or 9 or 11, whatever it was. Yeah,
that was a great conclusion and great climax. I like the book a lot. I'll give my rating first. I feel like you've been giving your ratings first for a while. My highest. Oh, is that your girl?
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, my little guy's stirring too.
All right.
Luckily, he's down right now.
Yeah, we got probably a couple more minutes here.
Okay, cool. Perfect. 9-6 with Band of Brothers.
Okay.
I think this is just as good. We haven't said one bad word, but it is short, but it is dense.
Short, dense. Yeah, I was surprised by how quick it was, or how short it was. Because I was looking through it initially, I was just like, oh, all right, it's 300 pages, but it read really fast.
Yeah.
So yeah, the length of it didn't deter me at all. I felt like this was pretty easy to get through.
And final thing. McCullough does a great, because so much of it is taken from firsthand accounts.
Yeah.
And it's a paragraph of text will be his words, a quote inserted very well, his words again. He does a great job.
I've read a few of his before. This is the one you should read. Yeah, the other ones I've read, or we could talk about those another time. But this is the one that you should read if you're going to read a McCullough book.
I think this is very, very good. I put just a hair below Band of Brothers. I'm going to give this a 9.5.
Yeah, I was going to go 9.2.
Perfect.
Yeah, this is a definite. Don't have to be a Revolutionary War fan. Don't have to be a history fan. This is just a good read.
Yeah.
Definitely 100% a book I could see you just sitting at the beach and reading over like a weekend if you really get into it, or a little bit longer than that. And not only that, it's a book where you read and you're probably talking about it like the next time you're bringing something up, like just having a dinner conversation. Hey, that Henry Knox, what a young young whippersnapper he was, who saved the day countless times. And then especially if you're from our area of the East Coast, like Fort Knox. Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I think this is a borderline must read if you're from the Northeast.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
Yeah. I was reading the first chapters and it was all about the Battle of Boston, and I have two brother-in-laws from Boston. And I was like, you guys have to read this book. Yeah. But then the end is all about New Jersey. And I think if you're even from New Jersey, you have to read, because the whole last quarter of the book is in New Jersey.
I would say so. Yeah. And the next stage too. Well, yeah, I definitely think so. So New Jersey Fort Lee was just gone, right? They came here, they're gone. The battles around Trenton, Princeton, and then wintering in Morristown is very interesting.
Because I was like, when did they get stuck in Valley Forge? That must be later. But awesome book. Awesome book. You got anything else?
Nah, not particularly.
We didn't do it. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, in terms of next book, you want to start talking about next?
Yeah, next book we have Last Kingdom by Bernard Cornwell. Last Kingdom is a historical fiction show also on Netflix. Highly recommend. I've seen every season. You were the one who told me to watch and nailed it.
Yeah. So I'm giddy about talking about that book because I am thoroughly enjoying it.
The main character is an absolute stud. My wife just calls the show Uhtred because
that's perfect. Uhtred, son of Uhtred.
Yeah. And then after that we have Tribe by Sebastian Younger, and then we have the Steve Stratton Shadow Tier series. His new book came out this week, so if you want to check it out, check out Caribbean Harvest. But I just interacted with him on Twitter once again. He's pumped for it.
Cool. And we'll talk about that more than in a couple of weeks.
We'll do that in a couple of weeks. We didn't do our end of season Giants recap when we did On the Road. Somehow we missed that.
I wonder how.
Yeah. Oh no. Final thoughts before you get to Natasha and I get to Ty.
Giants final thoughts. Same. It's just the same story. I have no real excitement going into next year. I have no faith in definitely the ownership and the management and the coaching. I don't know what would change. I don't know what would change things for me. If they did exactly what I think they should do, that would change things. But they're not.
What do you think they should do?
They should they should trade the pick.
I don't think anyone's coming up. I don't think this is a very good draft where people can trade up to a third pick to get a position player.
There's a couple. So who's first? It's Tennessee, Cleveland. Vegas needs, if Sanders is there, Vegas kind of has to take Sanders, I think.
Yeah, I would hope so. Yeah, but you were okay with you think this regime would pass on a quarterback?
No, that's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. What I'm saying is if they did exactly what I wanted them to do, I'd be kind of happy. They're not going to do exactly what I want them to do.
So you would hope that a quarterback falls to us and we don't take a quarterback.
Correct.
I feel the exact same way. I feel like there is a snowball's chance in hell that would happen.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. There's basically no chance.
They would not pass on the chance to take a young, potentially franchise. I don't think so, but potentially franchise quarterback with their jobs on the line.
Correct.
Which is terrifying.
It is terrifying because Dable's supposed to be this quarterback whisperer guy. Like he was supposed to be the guy who brought up Josh Allen and turned him into a superstar. More and more, I think he had nothing to do with that. And maybe he even held Josh Allen back.
Yeah, because Josh Allen's doing just fine without him.
He's doing perfectly fine with like less options without him. So that's now making me even more nervous. Like, all right, so we're putting all of this like quarterback development on him, and he very easily A, couldn't be as good as we thought, and B, might be gone after the year.
Okay, so
I also miss Wink Martindale. If they had Deonte Banks and Travis Hunter at quarterback with the defensive line they have right now, with Wink, I feel excited about the defense.
I don't think Deonte Banks is good.
He's not, but I think he was better with Wink.
He could be good too if he moves Travis Hunter if you want.
Yeah, I think he was better with Wink.
My dad is super anti-ownership.
Nice. Wow, that's really good to hear that regime, like your dad's regime, is anti-ownership.
Yeah.
All right.
Like
it's coming around then.
Yeah. My thoughts are take best player available, non-quarterback, sign Darnold or Fields, or honestly maybe Aaron Rodgers.
Oof, God.
I know. And then just get – because there's going to be Arch Manning, there's going to be Cade Klubnik from Clemson.
Yeah.
There's going to be –
There's a kid from Florida. He's a freshman this year. There's a kid from Florida who's a stud. Forgot his name.
Yeah.
The problem with anything of that, so Sam Darnold's probably going to get like a Baker contract, which is like 3 years. At this point, it's probably going to be like $120 million, but that's just way too much.
I don't think so. I think he cost himself a lot of money.
Yeah, I think like he went from getting big money to like getting Baker money.
That's fair.
Yeah, or whatever. Daniel Jones contract, 4 years, 160, something like that. No, the only thing I want is like, so I don't want Sam Darnold because I would prefer I would prefer Justin Fields. Like at least
I kind of would too.
At least give me somebody who can like run around because our offensive line is still shit. Like some type of athleticism, something like that.
I don't think he's terrible, Justin Fields. I think someone could make him into good quarterback.
I don't really care. Honestly, we've had this discussion many times before. If they get him and he plays great, then we got lucky, which is cool.
Yeah.
If he comes here and plays like crap, we're in the same boat we are now. So it's kind of like lose, as long as you don't pay him too much money, whatever.
Yeah. I'm fine with bringing Daboll and Shane back. I thought they were going to. I think the ownership doesn't want constant turnover. And I think that I heard a theory that they didn't think they could get a star head coach this offseason.
Yeah, that's scary.
It's a non-competitive roster.
That's
if they have a stud, like hypothetically Travis Hunter, and then add it to a young rookie quarterback, they could get a very good.
That's scary because we're 3 years into this, and for this not to be an attractive roster is scary.
What's very scary is that Aiden Hutchinson was taken the same draft as Kayvon Thibodeau, just like 3 spots ahead. They were
2 and 5, yeah.
Yeah, but they were like neck and neck for top defensive end. So
yeah, I mean, Kayvon Thibodeau before that, like last year at Oregon, he was expected to be the number 1 overall.
Yeah, I know Hutchinson's injured, but that shows. I'm pretty sure the Lions didn't trade up for that pick, or they weren't.
Yeah. No,
the
Jaguars had one. Jaguars had one. They took Trayvon Walker,
who's done nothing. But it shows the Lions and the Giants were in the same situation.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
And now they're a top 3 team in the NFL.
Totally different. Yep.
All right. On that note, let's go Continental Army. We'll get back to positive end.
Looking forward to Last Kingdom next week. That'll be fun.
Let's do it. All right. Take it easy, brother.